Hey, fourth grade, happy Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed our first 2 days of reading Stone Facts. I'm already super interested in what's going to happen. I mean, I read this book before, so I know what's going to happen, but I hope you guys have like the same zeal that I have to finish this book. And remember, I know this came up that it's a really short book, but remember we only have like a few weeks left of school. So I picked a book that I knew we could finish in these next couple weeks. So, and get maybe a little project in. So let's get started and let's get rocking and rolling for today. I'm going to pick you up and take you over to, remember our new system, where I'm going to do notes on my laptop. Okay, awesome. And I'm going to flip you over. Beautiful. So for today, it's day 3. Stone Facts is underlined, remember, because it's a book, and the date is 5/20/20. And we're reading chapters 3 through 4. And our comprehension for today, remember, starts with underlining the story. I gave you posters that I've already had pictures done of. Setting of the story. The setting is the place, time, and environment of a story. So remember, place is where, home, store, jungle, on a boat. We have taken notes like these before, so just make them simple for yourself. Time, when, morning, summer. They put a year, 1803, or 2059. Oh, good Lord, we're not even there yet. Environment, what? Cold, dark, stormy, rainy. So let's think about our setting of Stone Facts. So place, well, we already know where. It takes place in Wyoming on a farm that little Willie and his grandfather live. And what kind of farm was it? A potato farm. So that was really important to remember. So Wyoming, on a farm. If anyone ever has been to Wyoming, it's very earthy there. They've got mountains and prairies and wide open spaces. It's such a beautiful place. Time, when? Well, we don't really know too much about this just yet, but it sounds like harvest. So if anyone knows when harvest is, it's in the fall, right before, like little Willie said, he had to get those potatoes out of the ground before the first frost. So it's got to be during the fall time. And they also said they planted the potatoes at the beginning of the summer. So they had plenty of time. So we have to be in fall. Environment, what? Cold, dark, storm. Well, this one's kind of hard too because we're not really sure about this one just yet. So, but think of fall weather. It's probably chilly, not frozen or anything, but probably pretty chilly. And he has to be able to work outside. So I'm thinking there's no rain. So the setting affects what happens in the story. Absolutely. Because what would happen to Willie's potato crop if it was raining all the time in the setting in Wyoming, or it snowed? That's with the frost. They talked about the frost. What would happen? They would lose the crop and he wouldn't have gotten the money that he needed. And then the money wasn't what the grandfather was worried about. The setting can change. Absolutely. We can go somewhere different during the story. Also, I have a feeling the season is going to change because we did hear a little bit about our dog friend, whose name I have to remember really, Searchlight. Sorry. So our dog friend Searchlight, he said that she pulled the sled during snow for them. So that maybe we'll get to see some of that. And characters react to the setting. Okay. So characters react to this. Well, they completely changes their life. Remember, the setting is where they're living and what's going on with them. And this says, look for clues in the words and pictures. So you can definitely do that because there are some illustrations in our book. Very nice. So I'm going to pull that back up. And I want you guys to be able to get this written down. I'm going to go ahead and make sure you can see all of it. There you go. So pause and get this written down if you need it. Turn me back on when you're ready because I'm going to keep going. So our vocabulary study for today. So our first word is sturdy. Sturdy is another word for strong, unlikely to break. And what's something sturdy in your house that's unlikely to break? Well, I have to think about my neighbors next door just got a new swing set. And I think it's very strong and sturdy. And it's not going to break on them because they're really, really little. So those have to be made to be sturdy. Patiently. Waiting calmly. Oh, some of you don't know what this means because you always are asking me questions and coming. I love asking when you ask me questions, but you always want to know what the next thing is. But we have to learn to wait calmly. Outskirts. outskirts is the area along the outside of a city or town. You might hear this when someone's talking about when they're going on vacation. You get to see the outskirts of town before you drive into town. Or there's a couple songs. If you ever listen to Taylor Swift's song Love Story, you should really, really look it up. It's a very good song. But she met her Romeo on the outskirts of town, so no one would see her and they wouldn't get caught. Exhausted. Very tired. Sounds like me all the time. Sounds like a lot of you all the time when you're in my class. Authority. The person or people in charge. I am the authority. I'm the queen of the classroom. You remember that. Tremendous. Great. Extraordinary. The fact that you are learning to love to read is absolutely tremendous and extraordinary, and it makes me so, so happy. Okay, so I'm going to flip that over one more time and give you a chance to write everything down, and then we're going to get to reading. All right, so here you go. Go ahead and pause if you need to write that down. But I'm going to continue on. Very good. So let me go ahead. I'm going to put you guys back over on my stand. Okay. All right, so let's get moving on to chapter 3 today. I'm going to get nice and cozy when I read today. Chapter 3 looks like we're going to learn about searchlight. Chapter 3, searchlight. It's easy to tell when it's winter in Wyoming. There is snow on everything. The trees, the houses, the roads, the fields, and even the people. If they stay outside long enough, it's not a dirty snow. It's a clean, soft snow that rests like a blanket over the entire state. I love that because that reminds me, remember when we were making comparisons using like or as? That's a simile. So my author just said, it's not a dirty snow. It's a clean, soft snow that rests like a blanket over the entire state. And he compared the snow in Wyoming to a soft, comfy blanket. Oh, that sounds amazing. The air is clear and crisp, and the rivers are all frozen. It's fun to be outdoors and see the snowflakes float down past the brim of your hat and hear the squeak of the fresh powder under your boots. Winter in Wyoming can be the most beautiful time of the year, if you're ready for it. Ooh, I like that sense of adventure. But also our setting has changed. We went from fall, and now we're in winter in Wyoming. If you're ready for it. Ooh, that's a challenge. I'm up for the challenge. I don't like to be challenged. Little Willie was ready. He had chopped enough wood. They would not be cold. He had stocked enough food. They would not go hungry. He had asked Lester at the general store how much food Grandfather had bought last year. Then he had purchased the same amount. This would be more than enough because Grandfather wasn't eating very much these days. The coming of snow as early as October also meant the coming of school. But little Willie didn't mind. He liked school. However, his teacher, Miss Williams, had told Grandfather once, as far as I'm concerned, that boy of yours just asks too many questions. Grandfather had just laughed and said, how's he going to learn if he don't ask? I love that. I have to say there's never too many questions. Only if you raise your hand and you're polite when you're asking questions. That's something to remember, little Willie. Then later, Grandfather had said to little Willie, if your teacher don't know, you ask me. If I don't know, you ask the library. If the library don't know, then you really got yourself a good question. Grandfather had taught little Willie a lot, but now little Willie was on his own. Each morning he would get up and make a fire. Then he would make oatmeal mush for breakfast. He ate it. Searchlight ate it. Grandfather ate it. He would feed Grandfather a spoonful at a time. After breakfast, little Willie would hitch up Searchlight to the sled. It was an old wooden sled that Grandfather had bought from the Indians. It was so light that little Willie could pick it up with one hand, but it was strong and sturdy. Little Willie rode on the sled, standing up, and Searchlight would pull him 5 miles across the snow-covered countryside to the schoolhouse, which was located on the outskirts of town. Remember, on the outside, on the edge. Searchlight loved the snow. She would wait patiently outside the schoolhouse all day long. Can you imagine if your dog waited for you all day outside in the snow? Oh my goodness, they'd probably get hungry. And little Willie never missed a chance to run out between classes and play with his friend. After school, they would go into the town of Jackson and run errands. They would pick up supplies at Lester's general store, or go to the post office, or go to the bank. Little Willie had $50 in a savings account at the bank. Every month, Grandfather had deposited the money Little Willie had earned from working on the farm. "Don't thank me," little Grandfather would say. "You earned it. You're a good little worker, and I'm proud of you." Grandfather wanted Little Willie to go to college and become educated. All Little Willie wanted to do was grow potatoes, but he respected his grandfather enough to do whatever he said. If there were no errands to run that day, Searchlight would just pull Little Willie up and down Main Street. Little Willie loved to look at all the people, especially the city slickers, as Grandfather called them. Why, they didn't know a potato from a peanut, Grandfather said. They probably would think we were city slickers, right? We don't know anything about farming. I'm sure maybe you guys do. Let me know if you know something about farming. And their hands were as pink and soft as babies. You couldn't miss the city slickers. They were the ones who looked as if they were going to a wedding. And a little before 6 each day, Little Willie would position his sled in front of the old church on Main Street. Today again, he waited, eyes glued on the big church clock that loomed high overhead. Searchlight waited too, ears perked up, eyes alert, legs slightly bent, ready to spring forward. Bong! At the first stroke of 6, Searchlight lunged forward with such force that Little Willie was almost thrown from the sled. Straight down Main Street they went, the sled's runners barely touching the snow. They were one big blur as they turned right onto North Road, and they were almost out of town before the church clock became silent again. "Go, Searchlight, go," Little Willie's voice rang out across the snowy twilight. And did Searchlight go? She had run his race 100 times before, and she knew the whereabouts of every fallen tree and every hidden gully. This enabled her to travel at tremendous speed, even though it was getting dark and more dangerous. Little Willie sucked in the cool night air, and felt the sting of the wind against his face. It was a race, all right. A race against time, a race against themselves, a race they always won. The small building up ahead was Grandfather's farmhouse. When Searchlight saw it, she seemed to gather up every ounce of her remaining strength. She forged ahead with such speed that the sled seemed to lift up and off the ground and fly. They were so exhausted when they arrived at the house that neither of them noticed the horse tied up outside. Little Willie unhitched Searchlight, and then both of them tumbled over onto their backs in the snow and stared up at the moon. Searchlight had her head, one paw on Little Willie's chest, and was licking the underside of his chin. Little Willie had a hold of Searchlight's ear, and he was grinning. The owner of the horse stood on the front porch and watched them, tapping his foot impatiently. Chapter 4, we're going to find out the reason the person is here. "Get over here," the voice cut through the air like the twang of a ricocheting bullet. Little Willie had never heard a voice like that before. Not on this farm. He couldn't move. But Searchlight sure could. The owner of the voice barely had time to step back into the house and close the door. Searchlight barked and snarled and jumped at the closed door. The door opened a crack. The man stood in the opening. He was holding a small Derringer and pointing it at Searchlight. His hand was shaking, so that's a gun. "Don't shoot," Little Willie yelled as he reached out and touched Searchlight gently on the back. The barking stopped. "Who are you?" "Name's Clifford Snyder, state of Wyoming," the man said with authority. He opened the door a little farther. The man was dressed as if he was going to a wedding. A city slicker. He was short, with a small head and a thin, droopy mustache that reminded Little Willie of the last time he drank a glass of milk in a hurry. "What do you want?" Little Willie asked. "Official business. Can't the old man inside talk?" "Not regular talk. We have a code. I can show you." As Little Willie reached for the door, Clifford Snyder again aimed his gun at Searchlight, who had begun to growl. "Leave that thing outside," he demanded. She'll be all right if you put your gun away. No duh, buddy. No. Are you afraid of her? I'm not afraid. Dogs can always tell when someone's afraid of them. Just get in this house this minute, Clifford Snyder yelled, and his face turned red. Little Willie left Searchlight outside, but Clifford Snyder wouldn't put his gun away until they were all the way into Grandfather's bedroom, and then he insisted that Little Willie shut the door. Grandfather's eyes were open wide and fixed on the ceiling. He looked much older and much more tired than he had this morning. You're no better than other folks, Clifford Snyder began as he lit up a long, thin cigar and blew smoke towards the ceiling. And anyway, it's the law, plain and simple. Little Willie didn't say anything. He was busy combing Grandfather's hair like he did every day when he got home. When he finished, he held up the mirror so Grandfather could see. I'm warning you, Clifford, Snyder continued. If you don't pay, we have our ways, and it's all legal, all fair and legal. You're no better than other folks. Do we owe you some money, Mr. Snyder? Little Willie asked. Taxes, son. Taxes on this farm. Your grandfather there hasn't been paying them. Little Willie was confused. Taxes? Grandfather had always paid every bill, and always on time, and Little Willie did the same. So what was this about taxes? Grandfather had never mentioned them before. There must be some mistake. Is it true, Little Willie asked Grandfather? But Grandfather didn't answer. Apparently he had gotten worse during the day. He didn't move his hand or even his fingers. Ask him about the letters, piped up Clifford Snyder. What letters? Every year we send a letter, a tax bill, showing how much you owe. I've never seen one, insisted Little Willie. Probably threw 'em out. Are you sure? Began Little Willie, and then he remembered the strong box. He removed the boards and lifted the heavy box up onto the floor. He opened it and removed the papers. The papers he remembered seeing when he had looked for the money to rent the horse. Are these the letters? He asked. Clifford Snyder snatched the letters from Little Willie's hand and examined them. Yep, sure are, he said. These go back over 10 years. He held up one of the letters. This here is the last one we sent. Little Willie looked at the paper. There were so many figures and columns and numbers that he couldn't make any sense of what he was looking at. How much do we owe you, Mr. Snyder? Says right here, clear as a bell. The short man jabbed his short finger at the bottom of the page. Little Willie's eyes popped open. $500. We owe you $500? Clifford Snyder nodded, rocking forward onto his toes, making himself taller. And if you don't pay, he said, I figure this here farm is just about worth. You can't take our farm away, Little Willie screamed, and Searchlight began barking outside. Oh, yes, we can, Clifford Snyder said, smiling, exposing his yellow, tobacco-stained teeth. Oh, my goodness. Okay, we're going to stop there today. Let's talk a little bit. Oh, boy. This poor little kid was just trying to have some fun by going out and doing the sled with his dog, and then he comes home and he has to take care of more adult things. So now we kind of understand why Grandfather's not feeling very well, right? He's probably very mad at himself for not paying the taxes, and now they owe $500, which back then was a lot of money, a ton of money. It's not easy to save up that money and pay for it. So can you imagine being 10 years old and trying to figure out how to save your family's farm and how to be able to pay for all this? I truly can't. It's very scary because, I mean, what is he going to do? That's all I can think is, what is he going to do? What's going to happen next? So your assignment for today, I'm going to stop there with my ranting. Your assignment for today is to look and discuss. So you have your vocab, your questions from the chapter, but you're also going to do a story setting activity, and I'm kind of excited about this one. So number 1 says, describe the setting of Stone Fox. When and where does it take place? Okay, well, tell me. Where in the world? What time of year have we been there? It's already changed. We've already gone to 2 different settings. And then give me about 2 to 3 sentences for that first one, okay? And then 2, draw a picture of a setting described in the story. You can draw the farm. You can draw Main Street. You can draw the school. I mean, think about it. You can draw a lot of things here. And then number 3, explain what you have drawn about. Well, tell me what you drew. Give me 3 details about it. I hope everybody's watching this, because if this is not done correctly, I will make you redo it. Okay. Good work today, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow on Thursday.